This video is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com and GatheringMagic.com, your place to explore the game.
Hi, I'm Uriah, and this is my Dragonlord Atarka Commander deck. When Dragonlord Atarka was first spoiled, a lot of people said that she would not be good as a commander just because of the fact that Atarka World Render does so much more damage. Even though she's only a 6/4, the double strike means 12 damage instead of 8. But the flying trampoline 8/8 body on 7 that can also deal 5 damage between creatures and planeswalkers is very potent. And I actually think a lot of people underestimate Dragonlord Atarka. So I decided to build a deck around her, especially since I pulled the pre-release foil version, and show people just how wrong they are, because she is a great commander and can really wreck the tables. This deck is primarily Dragon Tribal. Because of that, we go heavy on the mountains. There's a lot of fire breathing. So 16 mountains and 9 basic forests. We do have some mana fixing in here. We have a Taiga, a Stomping Ground, and one of the new Cinder Glades. I like it because it is a mountain and a forest, which means some of my forest search can go ahead and find this. Whereas opposed to the past, it was just Stomping Ground, Taiga, or a basic forest. We have that in the form of Wooded Foothills. Some more fixing in Rootbound Crag, Grove of the Burnwillows, a Gruul Turf. Haven of the Spirit Dragon allows me to use 1 mana of any color to play dragon spells. There are so many dragons in this deck, it doesn't hinder me by having the colorless mana source on there. Also using the Haven of the Spirit Dragon to return a dragon is pretty cool as well. I don't have Ugin in the deck, but if I did, it would be even better. But I also run Crucible of Worlds. That way, if I do need to sacrifice the Haven of the Spirit Dragon, I can get it back to use it again. Some more fixing in Command Tower. We have Mosswort Bridge. It's very easy with large dragons to get to 10 power quickly, so that's a great hideaway land. Temple of the False God, because a lot of the dragons are expensive. And as you'll see, I've actually changed this deck quite a bit since when I first built it. There were quite a bit more dragons in it initially, especially ones that were a higher casting cost. There's not a whole lot on the low end. Sol Ring is in here because I want to get high. And then I really, when I looked at the deck, saw there were no other 1-drops in the deck besides Sol Ring when I initially built it. So I added the Traveler's Amulet and Wanderer's Twig, just to go ahead and allow me to get better fixing and also do something on turn 1 where normally I'd be playing a land and then just passing. We have Gruul Signet for fix and ramp. We have some more ramp in the form of Cultivate, Darksteel Ingot, Crucible of Worlds. Again, there's not a whole lot of targets for Crucible of Worlds. It could be better with only the 1 fetch land and the Spirit of the Haven, or Haven of the Spirit Dragon. So if I had more fetches in here, it would probably be even better for me. So it's kind of on the edge of being cut, but I think just because of the Haven of the Spirit Dragon, it's good enough to be in the deck still. We have Solemn for some more ramp. Skyshroud Claim, which lets me get the Cinder Glade, Stomping Ground, or Taiga, or a basic forest if I need it. Explosive Vegetation there. Frontier Siege is almost always, at least early game, going for cons for that double green mana. If you can get some early acceleration and get this out on turn 2 or 3 perhaps, you can really start dropping those dragons down quickly. I haven't really drawn it too much in the late game, but if I do, I generally would probably pick dragons. There is a small fight sub-theme in this deck, and I do run the Foe-Razer Regent, which would make the fight part of the Frontier Siege quite a bit better. Cage Sun is almost always naming a red when it comes into play. And here we have the dragons. I had to go ahead and get those lower casting cost dragons like I mentioned, because there were so many 6-drops in this deck. It just really wasn't operating functionally when I first built it. So we have Thunderbreak Regent. Not only is it a decent body of 4/4 flyer on 4, but it also shoots a lightning bolt out whenever it or another one of your dragons becomes the target of a spell or ability, which is pretty good. We have the only mono green dragon in the deck with Chameleon Colossus. The ability to pump is just, it's great, especially with this deck, which can get a lot of big mana if the game goes late. Another 4-drop dragon that I like a lot is the Avaricious Dragon, 4/4 flyer on 4. You have to discard your hand at the end step, but I usually wait until I'm low or the cards in my hand don't really matter before I drop this guy. And the ability to do that double draw during the upkeep is, or the beginning of the draw steps, is pretty helpful. We have Thundermaw Hellkite, a standard killer from days past. Really great if I want to tap down my opponent's creatures with flying, and then get in with all of my flying creatures. Stormbreath Dragon, Flying Haste, Pro White. I haven't had the Pro White come in as much, but monstrous ability as well to make it bigger, and then also deal some more ancillary damage is pretty cool. Harbinger of the Hunt, just go ahead and kill creatures in the air, kill creatures on the ground. You just never want to activate this with the green more than 3 times, or you're going to kill himself, or at least 3 times. Scourge of Valkas is in here, a 5-cast dragon instead of a 6-cast. The triple red is not too much of a problem because this deck runs so heavy on the red, and it's the ability to deal damage whenever a dragon or itself comes into play. While not really great, can only sometimes do 1 or 2 damage. If paired with Dragon Broodmother, this is a killer by itself. And there she is. Dragon Broodmother, one of the better dragons in the deck. I do have Dragon Tempest in the deck, along with the Scourge of Valkas. If I can stick a Dragon Broodmother and a Dragon Tempest, the game, it's not going to last a whole lot longer if those turn cycles start going through and no one can deal with either one of those two. I will start dealing 7, then 8, then 9 damage on upkeep, and that can go very quickly from 40 to 0 for my opponents. Savage Vintmaw, although a 6-drop on the higher end of my curve for dragons, can add 6 mana, and that doesn't empty as I move between phases, so that's very helpful to play him early. He's usually one of the ones I want to get down as soon as possible, so I can use my mana that I have that I've already used to cast him on the next turn, as well as the 6 mana he generates to get some more dragons out in play. Scourge of the Throne from the Conspiracy is a great dragon. Having the ability to have the multiple attack phases, especially with Dethrone, can be absolutely devastating. Speaking of devastating, we have Destructor Dragon, just a 4/4 on 6, so it's not too great, but when it dies I can kind of do a little bit of a Desert Twister imitation on a non-creature permanent. Moltensteel Dragon, it can be essentially a 4/4 flyer on 4, and I can also do the fire breathing. In the vacuum, it's not the most powerful dragon in the deck, but it can still get a lot of damage there if I needed to. I don't have any infinite combo attack phase shenanigans going on with the Hellkite Charger in this deck. A 5/5 Flying Haste on 6 by itself is good enough. If I sometimes have late game enough mana to do an additional attack phase, that's cool. But usually this is just the 5/5 Flyer on 6 with the sometimes threat of I'm going to take another attack phase after this one. Uriah the Falling Star, this goes ahead and clears out a lot of creatures on the ground when it dies, so just for that ability, a mini earthquake, if you will, allows it to fit well into the deck. Hoard-Smelter Dragon to destroy artifacts that are causing me problems. Mana Charge Dragon, not a lot of dragons with trample, so having that is cool. And also, if no one else wants to play Joined Forces for the fire breathing, I can still do it myself, which is usually pretty good. I do run the Atarka World Render in this deck. It is dragon themed, so might as well play her. And even though a lot of people say she's stronger and should be the commander over Dragonlord Atarka, it draws such a target on your head when you play this as your commander that I think that the other Atarka flies more under the radar and can actually do better and get more wins, honestly. Balefire Dragon is great just for clearing out your opponent's creatures. Tyrant Familiar, a 5/5 Flying Haste, and the ability to pump the rest of your team. Actually doesn't pump the rest of your team, it just pumps itself, but then also to deal that 7 damage is pretty good. Oh, I did lie, there is another mono green dragon in the deck. Foe-Razer Regent that I talked about earlier. Not huge as a 4/5 when it comes into play on 7 mana. That is kind of pricey. It does bump itself up to a 6/7 after it fights, which is pretty good as long as it survives the attack. But then also, whenever a creature I control fights, I can put 2+1/+1 counters on it at the beginning of the next end step. So if I do have Frontier Siege out with the dragons option chosen, I can start doing some more fighting. I also have a fight card later on that I'll show you. Dragon Mage, just to refill my hand if the Avaricious Dragon's not getting there for me, and I need to restock. Bogardan Hellkite, just because it's kind of like a mini version of Dragonlord Atarka, and still does some damage there. Final dragon in the deck is the Utvara Hellkite. This thing is just crazy, even though it costs 8 mana. The ability to put a bunch of 6/6 red dragon creatures into the battlefield is just amazing. There's that Dragon Tempest, probably the best card in this deck. It comes down early, so you don't have to wait to you know, play it after you already cast some of your dragons, unless you draw it late game. This thing is just amazing and is probably kill on sight for this deck. To make my dragons cheaper to get them out earlier, I run the Dragon Speaker Shaman, as well as the Dragonlord Servant. The new Dragon Tutor, Sarkhan's Triumph, I have that in here as well. There are, I guess, 1 or 2 kill you combos for a 1v1 in here with Tooth and Nail. It's hard to kill multiple people with Tooth and Nail, just getting 2 creatures. Usually, though, it's just going to get the best 2 dragons that I need for the situation, and might not outright kill someone, but just give me a better board position. Sea of the Unwritten, kind of like Tooth and Nail, just allowing me to put some of these more expensive dragons into play for free. If I can put 2 6-cast dragons into play, if I have the Ferocious, you know, a trigger on this for 6 mana, that's worth it. I can late game make some dragons with the Dragon Roost. Belby's Portal, always naming dragon when it comes into play. For a 3 mana tap, put a dragon into play, even though it costs 5 to put out initially. That is a great card for this deck. Crucible of Fire to make my dragons bigger, because bigger dragons kill faster. Xenagos, God of the Rebels. If I want to do a kill you right away with Tooth and Nail, it'll probably be Xenagos and then Atarka World Render, just to get that quick double-double, basically. So this card can get out of hand pretty easily. Sarkhan Vol, he makes dragons, he can take creatures, and creatures I get Pumpy and Haste. Garrick, just to power out the dragons quicker with the untap ability. We have some card selection with Sylvan Library. The ability to regrow with Regrowth. Creeping Renaissance, usually I'm using this to return creature types. Sometimes if I have a lot of cards in my hand, I'll discard it just to cast it late game, because usually you have to put your creatures out and then have them die before you're casting this, which can be quite late in the game. Fling, just to go ahead and shoot a giant creature at someone's face right away. It's pretty helpful for 2 mana especially. The only, I guess, real non-dragon pseudo-wrath in the deck would be Mizzium Mortars if I overloaded it. Usually, though, this thing is going to play to where I'm just dealing 4 damage to a creature. Once I get to like 5, 6, 7 mana, I'm usually just dropping dragons. Clan Defiance for late game. It's okay. It hasn't been the best card in my deck. It's one that I might look to cut. It's very Gruul, so that's why it's in here. Savage Beating is a killer card from Darksteel. You may not be familiar with it if you weren't playing back then. You can only play it during your turn and only during combat, but you can either give all your creatures double strike or give them an additional attack phase, or do both for 7 mana. Once you start dropping those dragons down, what you want to cast with this, you're going to have that 7 mana anyway, so if you can get the Savage Beating off, you can start really taking down your opponents quickly. There's Pit Fight, which is a fight card at instant speed, which is pretty great. Gruul Charm is probably the worst card in this deck. I initially put it in just because it's Gruul, but really none of the modes do a whole lot for me here. I don't want to deal damage to creatures with flying. I don't really care about getting my permanent stolen. It's not really something that happens that often in my play group. And then creatures without flying can't block. It doesn't bother me either, because almost all of my creatures in the deck have flying. So the next card, the first card I'm going to cut when I add another card to this deck, will be the Gruul Charm. We also have Gruul War Champ. This, I think, kind of underplayed. I don't really see it. I'm still testing to see how well it does for me myself. This says, attacking creatures I control get +1/+0 and can only be blocked by 2 or more creatures. Just makes my dragons a little bit bigger and hit a little bit harder, and just makes them harder to block. We have Stranglehold to stop the extra turn shenanigans and searching of libraries. Gruul Warplow to give my dragons trample, because dragons with trampler is great. I don't know if I've ever activated the become a 4/4 artifact creature ability of this card. It's kind of on the edge of maybe being cut. There are other creatures, or other cards I should say, that just give trample to your creatures. They're just flat out cheaper and, you know, probably better. Tormod's Crypt just for a little bit of graveyard hate. Altar of Dementia, this is my anti-insurrection tech there. Also, it really messes with top of deck tutors. I love this card in almost any deck. Also, it kind of works with the Sarkhan Vol if I can steal one of their creatures and then sack it to maybe mill them a little bit as well. A little bit of artifact enchantment hate in Hull Breach. And finally, last card, some more artifact hate and enchantment hate split second with Corrosive Grip.
Thanks for watching CMDR Decks. Please subscribe and favorite.